Hello, we're going to be talking about the four big updates to the Section 333 exemptions that were given out here recently by the FAA. So this affects 5,529 FAA Section 333 exemptions. The FAA listed out which ones were changed. There was 36 pages of docket numbers. I counted them all up. It came to a total of 5,529. So it's great news what has happened here. So we have some updates because people had previously applied for exemptions in the past, and the FAA had it really had morphed over time as things went on. So the FAA updated the blanket COA. They also updated the stock kind of 333 around, it was March 7th, 2016, and now we have another update, which really brought them all up to speed so they're all on the same page because the certain ones and certain provisions were better than others. And so now it's on a level playing field. So let's dive in and start talking about what were some of the major changes. So one, registration can now be done under Part 48. Some of the older ones were only allowing for Part 47 registration. Keep in mind, however, that Part 48 is currently being challenged in the DC Circuit Court of Appeals. So if that lawsuit by John Taylor, and I'm also helping him out, is successful, then Part 48 registration, the registry database could be thrown out, and everyone would have to go and register their drone via Part 47, which can be kind of annoying. The second major provision here is that the super list of aircraft. It's this giant list. I have no clue. It's over 1,000 something aircraft now that are on it. The FAA really did that because the people that went for the 333 exemptions, they wanted to keep adding on more and more aircraft because the technology kept changing. So in FAA, to get around all these repeat petitions for amendment to add aircraft, what they ended up doing was just creating this giant super list and saying you're approved for anything that's on that list. And they pretty much were updating it almost monthly with new aircraft. What was weird is whoever was doing that at one point wasn't really checking to see if some of those aircraft were even real. And a prime example would be the Inspire 2, which was listed on there before the Inspire 2 actually really came out. So people, I guess, were just putting it in there to see if the FAA would give it to them in case the Inspire 2 did come out in the future, and they kind of future-proofed their exemptions. So the FAA also put that as well into their super list. And that is available at the FAA-2007-3330 docket. And you can figure that out by going to regulations.gov to figure that out. And you want to make sure you print that out and keep it with you as part of your operating documents, and make sure that the aircraft you are flying is actually located on that list. So the third point here is that flight instruction is now allowed. And I think this was a great job of the FAA to do this. And flight instructing definitely will help promote a safety of culture and professionalism in the drone industry. And I remember telling my students when I was flight instructing that a private pilot's license is really just a license to go out and kill themselves accidentally. That it's a license to go out and learn to fly professionally and safely, and that they're going to be learning as they go along. They shouldn't be getting cocky. They shouldn't be playing Highway to the Danger Zone like they're Tom Cruise and this is Top Gun. So I think this is a big benefit to the drone industry. And why did this provision get included? Well, for a long time, Kansas State was the only 333 exemption holder that had flight instructing approval from the FAA. The FAA subsequently did grant some 333s to allow flight instructing, but if you had an older 333, you would have to amend your exemption to go and do that. So a lot of these universities that do have flight instructing programs were precluded from doing this with their exemptions that were granted, and they'd have to go through this process all over again. So FAA, foreseeing this, just wanted to nip it in the bud by creating this blanket amendment to allow for flight instructing. And so why would flight instructing be beneficial for a 333 operator? Well, one example I can think of is that a large company that they already have protocols figured out and in place to allow for 333 operations in that company. Yes, they know 107 is out, but the company has already approved everything how to operate 333 wise. So as they're kind of figuring all this stuff and getting up to speed, they at least have this ability now under the 333 to do flight instructing, and it's kosher with their the large company protocols. Another example I could think of is where you have old COAs that are for certain types of airspace that are beneficial, and you would rather keep those and operate under those as opposed to going and getting a Part 107 airspace waiver, airspace authorization. So that just kind of they trust what they have in hand as opposed to maybe two in the bush, right? So that's why I think they're just sticking to go that route. Some of them. A fourth benefit, foreigners. The older 333s didn't have a provision in there that allowed for foreigners to actually operate the unmanned aircraft, even if it's a U.S.-based registered aircraft. Keep in mind, it's a U.S.-based registered aircraft that's owned, controlled, or operated by a person who's not a citizen or permanent resident of the United States actually qualifies and the regulations as a foreign aircraft. And so then you have to go apply for a foreign aircraft permit. Now, previously on the 333s, you weren't able to do that, but at least now you can. So some things that are not changed in the updates. Well, you're still going to have a sport pilot certificate or higher. Unfortunately, FAA didn't allow the student pilot certificate or the Part 107 remote pilot certificate to be used. Now, one potential benefit to this, however, is if you're doing certain types of operations that are unable to be done by really under 107, you could do it under a Section 333 exemption. So 55-pound and heavier operations that like for instance, you would have like cinematography with lifting a heavy camera that's 55 pounds and heavier overall, or crop dusting, stuff like that, where it could be done under a 333 exemption, but not a Part 107. Well, you might want to go into that realm if you have a sport pilot's license or higher, because there will be greater barriers to entry for your competitors, and the benefit to that is since there's less supply for the competitors, for the clients to choose from, then you could potentially have higher profit margins because they don't really have anyone to choose from. So another thing that did not change was that the previous 333 exemption dates that were on the previous exemption that was just granted were not changed. It wasn't extended. So those are still in effect. This is just changing the provisions, not the dates. Let's just, and I discuss in the article side-by-side comparison of the different FAA section provisions. There's a bunch of them previous, updated here. You can see which ones I went through of adding. There were some provisions that were added and some that were subtracted. And how will you find your docket to see if your FAA section, your FAA Section 333 exemption was amended? Well, what you can do is you can go to regulations.gov, and then in the box you can type in the name of your company or your personal name if you petitioned for yourself. And one way you can narrow down the search range if there's a whole bunch of people on there is in the agency box. You can type in FAA, then try to find yours, and then when you click in, what you can do is at the very top left, you can click Open Docket Folder, and that'll show all of the documents that are put into your docket. You're going to want to click the one that is the newest, the most recent one, and you're going to read it. Make sure your docket number, that number that was on the previous page there, it should be something like FAA dash, and then it'll be like 2015 or 2016 dash, and then it'll have a number. Find that number in the back of the amendment, and if that's in there, then that did apply to you. You're going to print that out and keep that with you when you actually are operating. So I hope this helps you in understanding the amendments that came out so that you can operate safely and legally in the national airspace.